All right, so let me share my screen. Thank you all for joining us. I'm going to go to the Lunch and Learn here. I believe you should have the link so you can log on to the Google Drive, which looks like this. Just letting you know, I added on a couple of extra things just right now. Somebody asked a question about grant writing tips, and they specifically asked for new writers, but I think it's the same whether you're new or been a seasoned, as we say, veteran writer. So there's a PDF there that you might want to check out. I also, there's a couple of questions about DEI that I'll get to in just a second, but just wanted to make sure y'all had access to this Google Drive that's growing and growing with some questions there. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the Q&A. If you have a hard time hearing, seeing us, or also accessing the Google Drive, let us know, and we'll put that in there. What I wanted to do is, well, welcome y'all. Lisa Redamozo here. This is our second Lunch and Learn. I'm also joined by Donna Walls behind the scene there, and also by my good friend and colleague, Teresa Thompson-Pickney, who will be on hand to answer any and all questions. So start, with the questions. I'm going to asking them in Q&A. We're trying to keep track of those so that we can provide, some feedback and also possibly generate a Q&A report, but we're answering a lot of them live, so I think it might be best to hold on to the recording. So I'm going to share with you some new questions that we received, if I can find it. And let me know if you can't hear me, let me know. Let's see here. Let me move this over here. All right, you should be able to see my screen. Oh, I moved it over, so I probably messed it up. Let me make sure you can see the Q&A. Yes. Okay, great. Okay, so I'm going to answer some of these questions and we'll get to some of the new questions. When is the talent search proposal due? I don't know. I'm speculating, pure speculation. If you look in the talent search or in the EOC Google Drive folder, there's a timeline that we've developed and we've already modified it. I was thinking it would be due in July before all this happened recently, just like it was a surprise for SSS the previous year. Usually the SSS competition is a guinea pig for the rest of the competition. So that's where I thought, okay, it was going to be due in July of 2025. So let's get working on it now. Then after all this is going on and the delays that we anticipate, I've pushed our timeline back to being due in September. All right, so you'll see our timelines of when you should be working on things is broken down for both Talent Search and EOC in the infographic flyer document that's in each of the folders for Talent Search, and then there's one for EOC. In reality, I don't know. It could be that it goes back to what it always has been, which usually is in the, February of every year funding cycle. So it should be February of 2026. That's what it always has been, that time frame. But I don't know. But we are acting as though it's going to be due the end of August, beginning of September. As soon as I find out any other information, believe me, I will post it and let you know. What's included in direct and indirect costs when developing a budget? I'm glad you asked this question because the number one thing y'all should be working on right now before you work on anything else regarding your proposal, whether it's new or continuation, is to do year one of the first year of the budget without any carryover. And that's real interesting stuff. But when you're working on that budget, everything's in direct cost except for, that's probably the easiest answer. Indirect cost, your direct cost is everything except for student travel for both EOC and Talent Search. Also rental. So if anyone out there is using their budget to pay for rent, and it's allowable if it's not, if the college or agency doesn't own it and you have to pay rent. Rental, sometimes people rent copy machines or computers. So those rental fees plus participant travel are not included in direct cost. Okay, and your college or agency gets 8% of direct cost. What we're talking about is participant support costs, which includes for Talent Search and EOC is mainly, student travel and rental fees. Those are considered, your agency or your college can't take 8% of those items. Okay, so again, when you look at your budget, it's everything except for student travel and rental fees are direct, and then 8% of that is what the institution or agency gets as indirect cost. Okay, And Teresa, let me know if there's anything I need to bring up with that. How should I change the DEI type references in the proposal? Well, the first thing you want to do is you want to identify, and that's actually what we're doing right now for a group of colleges and universities, some trio, some non-trio. They're asking us to go through their current proposals, which is what you should do. And you should look for any keywords or phrases that could be considered DEI. That's the first step. So in the Google Drive, it's not in any particular folder. It's just loose there. There are two documents. There's one giving you an overview of what we think of the top 8 executive orders that may in some way impact all the federal funding. But there's one specifically, the one about the DEI, is the one you need to really be concerned about. And there's another document, PDF, in the Google Drive, which is loose, which tells you what key phrases, terms to look for. So I would definitely first identify how much DEI type of wording your current proposal has. Okay. What I'm going to do with that document is next week be able to provide you with some examples on how you can change the wording. But the first thing is to, like they always say, first thing to recovery or to fix something is identify the problem. You may not have a problem. Check it out. So that document is in there. There's actually 2. There's one that's an overview of all the executive orders that could impact any kind of federal funding. And there's another one that says keywords and phrases to look for. So do me a favor, go through your entire proposal and see if you can highlight anything that might be an issue. And the next time we meet, I can hopefully help you with some of the rephrasing. When should we start writing? I kind of covered that already. Now, I mean, the budget and data collection right now, budget, data collection, and getting your ducks in a row for the applicant and community support section. If you have to update that or create that. Already answered that. I don't think it's going to be, earliest would be at the end of the summer. But again, school's going to be out pretty soon for talent search people. So, you almost have no access to your target school folks, and the data that you need to show need probably be blocked off. So you want to try to get in there now. And let's say it is pushed back, then you've got the fall semester to update. All right. But start now with budget and data collection at the same time. A very close second is start updating your applicant and community support, because some of the players may have changed in the community and the target area, and you need to find out now what kind of commitment or what kind of bells and whistles they'll have to go, levels of getting you the commitment that you need. It used to be, oh, sure, the principal can give me a letter. Now we got to go have a board meeting and blah, 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 blah. So start working on those. I already uploaded. Any tips or tricks for first-time grant writers would be appreciated. Again, I think it's the same whether you've written them for a million years or brand new. Should we include racial diversity when writing for the new grants? I would not, you know what? In the target area description, both EOC and Talent Search, you got to have a paragraph, no more than a paragraph, telling me about your target area. Is it a county? Is it a couple of inner city neighborhoods? Is it a whole city? Is it multiple counties? Whatever. Is it rural? Is it urban? If it's rural and I never heard of where you're at, give me some point of reference, like, 2 hours from Dallas, or something like that, to give me some sort of idea. And you've got to go ahead. You should. It would be really weird if you didn't tell me what the breakdown of the population is. It's factual, there's this many people in this area, this rural area, and the demographics are as follows. And cite the source, which should be the census. After that, I would not bring it up again. I used to, only when I wanted to kind of, like when the dropout rates for everybody at the school, it was already working in the sense that it was showing need. But in case I wanted to, in the past, do a little bit more need, I would say more alarming is the dropout rate for African-American students. I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to go there. Your needs should be based on the total school population, not on a specific racial background. Okay. But at the very beginning, when you talk about the target area, you got to be for real, and factual is factual. Tell us who's in the target area. All right. Is it promising to write for new schools due to the government's funding uncertainty? You know what? forget about what's going on right now. I know it's hard to, but it's always a big deal to add new target schools. Okay. Even if everything was great, I mean, even if we know for sure, stuff's going to happen. So it's not only because of now, but anytime you want to write for a new school, you can't and you should not promise that new school, no matter how much they say, look, I'm going to give you offices, you're going to have access to all the students. Sounds great, right? Well, the issue is that new school has to show need. So it's like a club, and we want you in the club, but you got to go through all these requirements. So before you promise a new school they're going to be part of the grant, you've got to see if they show need. And I hate to say this, but usually new schools that are wanting to bend over backwards to let you in and do whatever you want, great, right? But then it's sad that most of those situations, the school doesn't show need, so you can't include them as an official target school. At best, they could be a non-target school in the target area that you could get some students from, that are eligible as low income first generation, but they could never be an official target school because they don't show enough need. So it's always a big deal when you bring on a new school. Number one, can you afford to keep traveling to that school if you're adding? Number two, how many schools is your staff already spread across visiting and taking care of? But really, number one should be, do we need them for our numbers? But then they've got to show the need. You see what I'm saying? So it's not just, shall we bring them in? It's more, are they eligible for us to bring them in? Okay. Don't promise until you can show that they, on paper, in a spreadsheet, that they're struggling, that school is struggling compared to state and national rates. Is there a recommended organizational structure for talent search programs based on the number of students or schools that we fund to serve? Well, this is a hard question, because I could say what I want, but what I want, I can't afford. So it's always about the money, always about the money. So let's say, and I don't know particularly what your funding level is at. It all depends. But you got to do the budget. That's why you do the budget first. And if I'm writing for a fairly new program that's serving 500 students, in a perfect world, I would have a full-time director and 2 full-time advisors. Each one of those advisors with a caseload of 250. Okay, that will take up 80% of my budget. I'll barely have 20% to do everything else. Right? If you're going for new funding, though, you can't break that director down to be less than 100% initially. Maybe you can ask later on, but that's not a given either. If you're already split, you have to stay split. Okay? Moving forward, you may still lose a point with a reader, because they might be told, as in the past, take a point off. No matter what the reason is, I don't care if we approved it, take a point off because they don't have a full-time director. But they say they were approved. Doesn't matter. It's that competitive. But most of us have enough, at least 1 point in prior experience points, so we can survive losing that point. And you don't want to write to put 100% director if you're not, and then think that you're going to be able to switch back. That could be a problem. You might write yourself out of a job. Right? So that's a loaded question. I have to look at your budget. You have to look at your budget. And 250 to 300 students per advisor, and you want to make sure your budget includes full-time people. Even if especially if you're a part-time director, you need to have somebody that's considered the assistant director, coordinator, or lead advisor at least, because you can't be at 2 places at the same time. Someone's got to be in charge when you're not there. You don't want to lose 2 points for not having a full-time director and not having at least 1 full-time person in some sort of supervisory management position. Okay. So, and then again, number of schools served. This is the hardest thing. This is why right now, when you do the budget, it can give you the information you need to make some of these decisions. The other thing is collecting data for the schools. Hey, if you've got 10 schools right now, but 2 of them are not showing any more need, your decision has been made. You cannot include them to continue as a target school unless you're willing to take a hit, because those schools individually are not showing need. Now, if they're still in the same target area, you could still see the continuing students and maybe recruit a few more new students. But the focus of your target schools are the focus of your identification, recruitment, and selection and serving of students. So, and you can still, you have to go more often and more consistently to your target schools than to any other schools in the target area. Okay, that you might want to follow students to if you want to, you don't have to, or accept new students from those non-target schools that happen to be in the target area. But the two things you got to do, the budget and data collection, will already make those decisions for you. Some of these decisions are made for you when you see it in black and white on a spreadsheet. Okay, so keep that in mind. Can two talent search programs be in the same school at the same time? Sure, except they can't be from the same agency or college. Like a Boys and Girls Club, we couldn't have two different of our talent search grants be serving the same target area or the same target school. Okay, we couldn't have, we'd have to separate. The only reason why you're allowed to, as an agency or entity, to have more than one talent search grant is if each one is serving a specific different area. It could be within the city and you could split up. That's your agency. Now, you can't control if a college or another agency writes for the same school. You may know ahead of time. Sometimes we don't even know until after we get funded. That's when the fun begins. After you worry about getting funded, if you hear about somebody trying to cut into your territory at the target school, you could try to have a conversation with them if you find out, but really there's no rules where they can't write for your school. And if it happens and they get funded, guess what? You have to negotiate with the department, and usually whoever's been there first gets to stay there, and the other grant has to go someplace else, or say, oh, you know what, new grant, you wrote for 4 target schools. One of them or 2 of them happen to be part of this older grant. So you know what? You're not going to have those 2. So you're going to have to get all your numbers at just 2 schools instead of 4 schools. Anyway, my point is, that's, if you find out, you may want to talk to the right person to let them know, but really you can't stop somebody from writing for the same target school, that's from a different agency or a college. Do you want to go into another target school if you know that that's served? That's your choice. You might want to talk to somebody. Maybe the school, like the high school here's got 4,000 kids. I can only serve 500. What's going to happen to the other students? Do they not get a chance to get served? I may want someone else. I may ask someone, you know what, I can only serve 500 students here. You, me, and somebody else could be in here all day long and never run into the same student. And that's an unusual circumstance, right? So yeah, they can be at the same time. The department usually handles the aftermath. If both of y'all or 4 of y'all get funded and it overlaps, then there's some negotiating that needs to happen afterward. But my thing is get funded. And the other thing is, do you want to go there? It's not a fun thing to do or go through. I've been the recipient. I've written for schools that I didn't know there was another talent search program in there already. And then they found out that we were writing and we were so deep into it, then boy, I got the grief. And I said, honestly, I didn't know. I don't mean that bad, but no one told me. The people I'm talking to at the school didn't even know you were there. That's another issue. Your school can always refuse or say, no, we're with so-and-so already, which is, I've heard people say that their administration or their target school were approached by someone else and they said, no, thank you. Okay, but anyway, technically they could be, but as long as it's not your own agency or college that is doing that. Okay, so let me stop that sharing. All right, so let's see if we have got any questions here that haven't been answered yet. Okay, Beverly, what are my Texas friends considering as your rigorous coursework diploma plan? Yeah, y'all need to talk and get together. Beverly, I think you should get some task force going on there in Texas Trio of the talent search people. And I know we have some people who have that, have that podcast just about talent search. I was on there a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of months ago. I definitely think this is something that we should work on together. Someone needs to go and research the TEAs, Texas Education Agency, their definitions of the different diploma plans and compare it to the regulations and come up with a couple of options. Okay, but that's definitely, and anyone from any state right now, get together. Maybe you guys can come up with, you should, because the definition should be the same for everybody in the state. The question is, which one do y'all want to choose? Okay. All right. So then we've got, is it better to spread out over a lot of different schools and only cherry pick and serve a few, or saturate less schools? Great question. To me, in a perfect world, if everything else lined up, meaning that all the schools were showing the same amount of need. Okay. So again, this is a lot of these decisions you can't really make, you're kind of making them blindly if you first don't do the data collection. So in my case, I would do data collection on a bunch of schools and cherry pick the ones to show need. Okay. And try to serve more eligible students at fewer locations. Just like if you were a business and you had one location, you could only pay rent for one location, you only had a couple of salespeople. Would you spread yourself out over a bigger area to get some customers, maybe, so that you're geographically spread out more? Or would you be more strategic and try to find out where more of your eligible customers were living or residing and spend less time and effort traveling? If I could get more customers in fewer locations, that's what I would do. In a perfect world, I would have fewer schools serving more students. That's would be look more efficient, would save you time, travel, time, also dealing with less administrations, because each target school is kind of its own culture. One school loves you, the other one, so being spread out is tough. Now I realize if you're in a rural area, you don't have a choice. You have to be spread out. You have to be spread out. Because why? Because I did the data collection spreadsheet and I tried to find out where can I get, if I have to serve at least 500 students a year, I want to have a target area that at least provides me with enough schools and students, not schools, enough students where I can have a pool of at least 1,500 to pick from. Because not everyone wants to be in the program. Not everyone turns in their stuff. Not everyone is eligible, but I mean, I try to get that eligibility up to 3 times what I need. And if I'm in a rural area, I don't have a choice. I have to spread out. If I'm urban, like I said, this high school over here, 2 miles away, 4,000 students. Now, not all 4,000 are low income first generation, but I bet if I found out, I bet I could get 1,500 that would qualify. So I would just go there. But the school's got to show need. Now, this particular high school, I know, even though it's got the tons of students, even though I may have 1,500 easily, low income potential first generation college students. And I got to remember to talk to y'all about potential first generation college students. Even if I have that many, the school itself is not struggling. So even though I could find students that are eligible attending that school, they would never be a target school because the target school is not showing academic need when you compare it to state and national rates. Isn't that sad? So I really hope someday soon we can redo these regulations, because some students are actually not being served because they happen to go to schools that don't show enough need, but they really do need the services. Going back on that question about DEI, and a lot of the proposals that we're reading that folks have written for SSS, for Upward Bound, whatever. And Teresa I'm almost blue in the face, if I could be blue in the face, or, just tired of having to insert the word potential, because they're saying low income and first generation, right? You know what I mean? We know what we mean, but to an outsider, they don't get that we're talking about potential first generation college students. So please make sure, I do know one little tip, as you're talking or writing your grant, after you first, and you don't have to keep saying it over and over again, because you could always say EOC eligible or Talent Search eligible, right? I would downplay the low income and first generation reference in your proposal. Just after the first time you talk about it, for the rest of the proposal, refer to those students as talent search eligible or EOC eligible. And at the very beginning, when you talk about how many target schools or how many individuals in the target area that are low income, and don't forget the correct terminology is potential first generation college students. Okay, because people are reading it on the outside as though we're saying first gen, which I know this is so hard because in TRIO world, we know that means the first generation going and graduating from college. But to other folks, it could be first generation Americans, which is not a bad thing, but we want to make sure we tie it into the potential first generation college students. Okay. So let's see. Anybody else have any other questions? Nope. All right. Why don't I do this? And do we have a poll, Donna, we'd like to launch? And then I'm going to go through stuff in the Google Drive. Any other poll you think we could throw out there?
Okay. Here's one. Let's try this one.
Okay, let's take this poll and then I'll share with some stuff. Okay, what's your most dreaded section? I know what mine is. Come on and answer. It's anonymous, right? No, no one's gonna give you a hard time. You know, the budget is only because the budget is the easiest to do. It's just you may not like the results or the news it tells you, but you all can do the budget in less than an hour because we're not talking a lot of money. But the budget is good to start with. That's your framework that lets you know who you need to talk to about restructuring or whatever, or it's just time to look at that because we've been working on budgets right now lately that had a lot of carryover. So this is the time. So of course, yes, the needs section is the one that, yes, I dread it the most. It's the hardest section. You all can knock out most of this proposal in a weekend if you had to. I wouldn't recommend it, but if you had to. But the rest of it, I mean, that needs section, interesting enough, no one said objectives, which is my other dreaded section. I could have the whole thing done and just have little blank X's or just percentages for what I'm setting, because that's the gamble, is setting the objectives. You don't know if you're too high or too low. So that's my next dreaded one. Okay, thanks, Donna. Thanks for sharing that. We'll do another one in a second here. I think we have a question. I'll hit stop sharing. And we got a question here. I can't tell you how many times since December that I've went down to the internet for needs section, right? Exactly. You start going there. Yeah, you're going to have to force yourself to. I mean, again, the budget first, okay, because that will answer a lot of questions probably that, when you do your budget, it's actually a backbone or a summary for your quality of personnel, and even for your plan of operation. At least it's going to keep you from thinking, well, what should I do differently? Look at the budget. You may not be able to do anything differently, okay? And also about the quality of personnel. I wonder how I need to update this. Well, definitely that second question of the quality of personnel, the one where that is DI-ish as all can be, where it says, what the applicant's plan to identify, recruit, and select individuals that with similar backgrounds than the participants. I mean, I don't know if the department's going to be able to reword that in the final application. We're working on our response. So maybe the next time we talk, we can talk about that, have examples on how you can answer that question without, because I know the answer that I've used in the past will be picked apart. And it wasn't really that heavy on it, but I can see the question almost begs the word preference, and we're not supposed to be using that kind of word. So we're working on that. So quality of personnel used to be one of my, sections I looked forward to do. Now I'm dreading it because I know I'm going to have to revamp that second question. So I've been avoiding it, and I just realized, you know what? Let me work on the first part of the question, which is about the requirements. And again, on the requirements, I'm not going to go heavy on stating that, staff must have, I won't even use the word preference, I'm working on that, but either consideration, or I'm going to say that have backgrounds similar to those of Talent Search or EOC eligible students. Notice I'm not bringing up the low income first generation, that kind of thing. It's still a work in progress. So that's my other section that I dread. But when you do the budget, that gives you a good summary of what, your other sections should probably look like, or to be consistent. But then on the needs section, data collection, yeah, I mean, if you want to keep everything the same, fine, but then you've got to make sure all your target schools still show need when compared to state and or national rates. And if one of them doesn't in one of the tables, you need to decide, well, do I not have them as an official target school? Can I afford to let them go? Because, you have to keep a certain number of target schools from one grant to the next in order to keep your prior experience points. So you can't do a total revamp. You have to keep at least 50% or more. I would say 51% or more of your current target schools to not risk losing your prior experience points. Or do you leave them on there knowing that you might take a hit, but you've got enough prior experience points that you've earned so far that you can survive? That's where you cash in on your points. I think this time around, everyone's going to have to cash in on whatever prior experience points they have. Not all of them, but just some of them. So that's why they're so precious to have, because sometimes not, it, in my case, it was no way that I could be a full-time director. I had to be 25% director or 30% director. The budget was set up that way. I don't have a choice. And I'd say, you know what? That's not a problem. Just be prepared in case you lose a point from a reader. Do you have prior experience points? Oh yeah, we have about 9 or 10. Okay, you're good. So the same thing with the target schools. If you want to keep everything the same, but a target school is no longer showing need, a decision needs to be made. Do you keep them off and still serve them because they still are in the target area? They just won't be an official target school. And do you have enough so that you won't be dinged for not having enough to get your prior experience points? Or do you leave them in and go ahead and take the hit? Okay, so that's the thing you have to worry about. But again, you got to get your data. You've got to get your data now as soon as possible, even if, you'll have to update it possibly if it gets pushed back, right? The latest available data. So a lot of these questions can't really give you a complete answer until you have a little bit more information about your budget and how the data is looking for your existing schools. Those of you that are writing for new, Donna, do we have a poll about how many people are writing for new grants? I don't know if we have that one.
I think so. Let me look for it.
Okay. So we'll find out about that, because that's a whole nother issue this time around with new funding. It's going to be it's always super, super tough, but I really think, I mean, honestly, it's going to be a miracle. I almost said a bad word, miracle to get any new funding. If you lost a target school system, and here we go. Are you writing for new continuation? Everything's anonymous, just being for real. Okay, so if you could let us know, don't be afraid to tell me if you're right. Yeah, if maybe some of us are doing both, but if you're writing a new grant for an area that, you currently don't serve, or maybe you don't even have an existing program, I got to be for real and let you know. I mean, it's going to be tough. So you got to really, before you make promises and get people all worked up and excited, it's not just, oh, there's a bunch of kids here that are low income first generation, potential first generation. When I talk to you, I'll say first generation, but when I talk outside, I'll have to add the extra words. It's not that easy. The school itself has a show need compared to state and or national rates to be considered. And even then, remember, you don't have any prior experience points. It's just tough. I'm not trying to turn anybody off from doing it. Do that. You know what? Do the budget first. See if you can afford the program. Okay. See if you can afford it first of all. Okay. That's usually where people back off and say, this is going to be tight already. I can barely make year one work. Costs are going to go up and our funding might not keep up with the costs. Well, we have most continuation. Okay. And some are doing both. Some are not sure. Again, if I already have one and I'm writing for one, sure, why not? put together the same proposal, different needs section, different budget, go for it, because you're already writing one. Go for it. Who knows? You may get it. You never know what's going to happen, right? If you're just writing only for a brand new one, you know, that time and effort, I just, Teresa, I like, this time around, I really don't have a good feeling about any new grants getting funded. I mean, we wrote a whole bunch of, there's less money, but we wrote a whole bunch of upward bound math science programs that scored perfect scores, and they ran out of money before they got to them. Perfect score. There was no points taken off, but they didn't have enough money. Some of them did get funded a couple of years later, but it's real tough. Someone said, if you lost, thanks for y'all for answering that poll. If you lost a target school system, which was a separate middle school, which had a separate middle school and high school, does that count against me in the 50%? That was not my choice. They quit after 1 year into the grant, and Department of Ed knows this. Well, it all depends on how many, well, I don't think this will hurt you, but even so, it all depends on how many target schools officially are on your program profile form that was submitted with your proposal back in 2021. Remember that one? That's it. And also you see a version of that every time you go to type in your numbers on the APR, and they say how many students or participants you're funded to serve. And for Talent Search, it has a list of your target schools. So it all depends. How many target schools do they have on record for you all? Okay, how many? And then if you were to, for whatever reason, if these schools, sometimes schools break up with us, right? They get a new principal, a new administration. They're like, oh, we don't want to do that anymore. You're like, "Ah, okay. So I started with 10, that means I can't go less than 6. So if I lost a school through no fault of my own, okay, then I'm down to 8. I'm still okay. And even then, I've got 2 more schools that if they don't show need, I could not include them. As long as, for example, if I've got 10 to begin with, if I keep, 6, that's more than 50%, I'm still good. Now, all this, what I'm telling you, is pure, off the language that they say and the program application that they say substantially when a target school, and I don't know, Teresa, if you could look it up, but I think it's in the program application where it talks about prior experience. I believe it could be on that profile form, but they use that language of more than substantially the same has been translated into being more than 50% by someone at COE. So we've always used that rule. So it's not written in stone, but you do have a little bit of leeway. Would I go down to 6 just because I could? Probably not. If I had 10 schools, I would use that for these 2 that are gone. And also in your case, they know about it. So it should not, if anything happens, the good news is that your prior experience is awarded by the program, by the department directly, not the readers. Okay, so if something were to go down like that, you could have a conversation with your program officer either ahead of time or afterward if that happened, because it wouldn't be points that you lose from a reader. Okay, possibly. Okay. All right, so let me go ahead and do that. All right, will we lose points if we change our needs section comparison data between a neighboring school district and the state or national? In other words, can we choose whichever shows the most disparity? In a perfect world, and we don't live in a perfect world, I would try, again, in a perfect world, if I could, I would always try to keep my same comparison of my target schools to the same other entity, like the state or the national, across the board, if I could, if it worked. But it's not working that way. So sometimes I've had to compare the performance of our school, like persistence of our public school, possibly compared to a better, or I hate to say better, higher performing neighboring school district. And maybe have you tried to do that across the board for persistence, graduation, going to college? Maybe in those tables, you could keep the same comparison. And so maybe, and that's fine. You know what? Bottom line is, it doesn't matter who you compare yourself to, whether it's another neighboring school district. and or national, state or national. In a perfect world, I would compare myself to the district or another school, as many people as I could, but it doesn't work out that way. So that's why when you do the data collection, you should, in this case, it sounds like the only way you're showing need is when you compare yourself to the other school district. See if you can do the same and keep it consistent for most of the tables. But you should not lose points. I mean, I can't guarantee it. As long as you explain underneath in the table, the source that you're utilizing, and possibly, perhaps maybe this data was utilized because it's more accurate. I mean, give me something. It's like, oh, okay. Instead of me wonder why he jumped around. It was this and this and this. And I would know why you jumped around because you couldn't show need. But if you left it alone and if you were to be consistent, you'd lose points like crazy, right? So by changing your comparison entity, who you're comparing yourself to as a Hail Mary, basically, to not lose points, I would do that. If I had to, if I was in a corner where I couldn't show need, you betcha I would compare myself to that school district. And then I start thinking, well, maybe for some of the data, maybe for most of the data, could I compare myself to them and still show a need? So that's where I make a decision where, maybe not just for this one table. What if I did it for all the tables or as many as I could? And I put a little disclaimer there. When you don't explain yourself or don't offer the reader any kind of clue or a tip why you did, we found this to be more accurate. It was the most updated. You could also do that because, probably the neighboring school district is probably more updated than the state and national information. Then that's another way you could do it. It's when you do it without a little bit of an explanation why that could confuse people. Okay. They don't tell us right now in the program application what official comparison data we must have. Okay. And I hope they never do, but you will have to do this. And I can't guarantee that you won't lose point. I might take a point off if you didn't explain yourself as to why. And if you just said this data was more accurate, this data was more recent, then I'll be like, okay. But if you were for just left it alone, then I have no choice but to take away the points, right? Because math is math. If you're not showing a need, so do it. If I have lost 9 points already, and I guess you mean your prior experience points, is there any hope of me getting refunded? The last time I received a perfect score and all the prior experience points, 9. Okay, so 15 minus 9. Hey, even if you have 1 point, even if you don't have any points because your continuation, you got to still go for it. But 1 point is precious. So 50, you got what, 6 points? You got 6 points. That's good. And so see, last time I received a perfect score. You may not need any of it. Who knows? You may get perfect score again and never have to tap into those 6 points. But let's say there's one crazy thing over here, one crazy thing over here. Okay, that's 2 points. I had 6, so now I have 4. So go for it. Yes, there is a lot of hope for you. If you've got 1 point, there's hope. Okay. And like I said, if you're existing, and we've got some grants that never met their numbers, so they're going in as a brand new one. Well, the thing is, we're already in the schools. You already have those connections. Let's go for it. Let's go for it to see if we can, lightning can strike again. And you never know, it could happen. All right. But definitely, if you have 1 point, you're good. Okay. I mean, I wish you had more. Okay. Usually, the prior experience is from the performance on your APR for years 2, 3, and 4. And we've completed year 4 already, right? So everyone should know how they did. Look at your APR for year 2. Look at your APR for year 3. Look at your APR that we just turned in, right? For year 4. So you should have the math. How many points did you score out of the 15 possible for year 2? The same thing out of the 15 possible for year 3, and what we just found out we got for year 4. Add those 3 years together. For right now, I don't know, I think they're going to stick to those three, divided by 3. And that's how many points. So I'm guessing that you did that, And when you got the average, you're coming up with 6 points. Okay, so you should know, because this year that we're on, or right, is this the 4th year? No, this is I'm getting confused now, because I know I did SSS. Teresa, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, we're in year 4. 5 is next year. Is that?
Okay, so my bad. This is
Yeah.
when you do too many of them. I was thinking about SSS. So we're currently in year 4. So yes. So 2, 3, and we're right now the performance. So that's why getting your numbers right now, this is your last chance to try to earn some prior experience points. Okay, so after this year is over in August, when you do your APR, you could start doing a little early to kind of get an idea. Then those are the points that you divide by 3. Okay, so I'm sorry about that. Sorry, giving you all hard text. You still have a chance to do that. So maybe she's saying for the first 2 years, she knows that. You still have a chance. Okay. If you're off cycle, starting the 2nd year, what years are the Teresa, I don't know. You might have to look at this one for me. I'm already a little, I already goofed up on the easy one. If you're off cycle, I don't know about that.
I don't know. I don't think you
I think they
I
go
think
by,
you'll get less point. You won't have as many points. I think.
yeah,
I'm
I
not
think.
sure. I'm not sure. I've not run into a off-cycle talent search.
Yeah, I know, right? If anyone
Yeah.
knows that question, let me know, or else we can try to ask somebody who does have an off cycle. That's a good question. Okay. Yeah. So thank you, Teresa, to continue to serve substantially the same. And in the past, substantially the same has been translated by COE as to be 50, more than 50%. More than 50% of your total number of target schools. And yes, we are in the 4th year. So that's a really great question. Donna, is there any way you could save that question for me? Or I'll leave it up there. I don't know if you can see it and copy and paste it. But I think that might be the deal. I think you might not get that extra time, which is, I guess they should be, they say, oh, you should be thankful we gave you the money. We're not going to start over the clock for you. You're always going to be a little bit behind. Okay, so over here on the in the Google Drive is those orders. There's an overview that was there last time, but the new thing here that we uploaded is grant writing tips is listed there. And that's just for new and veteran writers. And then we also have compliance assessment review. There's some key terms, phrases, and activities to monitor. So I'm going to open that up and you should kind of see this here. Let me see here. We'll move stuff around to make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so you might want to, look at some of these words here. The executive order that we're most probably going to be concerned with would be the 14151 that references DEI. And, here's some terminology to look for. And also on the hiring and personnel selection phrases to monitor. And I know our TRIO grants for that second part of the question and quality of personnel has a lot of this going on. We've been reading a lot of proposals that were submitted, SSS, that's what SSS mine, and Talent Search and Upward Bound, that kept bringing this up even in other parts of the grant. Like in the objective section or in the plan of operation, they were like saying, you know what, these services will be provided by bilingual and staff that we prefer to hire and stuff like that. I was like, oh, we're gonna have to, tweak that out and downplay it because it wasn't really a requirement and they were putting that on there. So some things I think are an easy modification to do. And again, this doesn't really apply to Talent Search or EOC, but the SSS programs that we're working on, they were saying that priority would be given to SSS participants for a certain, consideration for scholarships and for work study funds. And it was like, uh-oh, that's not good, got to switch that out. And then student eligibility, remember, it should be, these were targeting first generation. We needed to make sure we link it to the TRIO criteria. That's very, very important. And again, I would recommend using the word talent search eligible, EOC eligible after your initial introduction. Okay. Activities, cultural field trips may be an issue. Events designed for specific racial ethnic groups, spaces for minority students, mentorship. Now this, took it over as though, you had these things going on, but it would let you know. And then bilingual, there's also Executive Order 13166 was revoked. And so it no longer requires it's no longer a federal requirement for bilingual services. So I know some of the grants we were reading were heavy on this, as a positive, and now it might be seen as a negative. So whenever you're reviewing your proposals, ensure that any DEI related language, hiring criteria, financial aid policies, or student programming is framed in accordance with federal guidelines. Where necessary, reframe initiatives to align with institutional, state, or local policies rather than the outdated federal mandates. Okay, so this document is in the Google Drive. The first step is to go through what you currently have, if you have an existing one, and to go ahead and make sure you find possible references to any of this, and then highlight them right now. Just highlight them, saying that, when I come through this again, I'm going to reword it. And that's what we're working on right now, is trying to find the right language, the appropriate language. So it's a work in progress. So as soon as I come up with some examples, instead of this, you can say this, I will also upload that in the Google Drive. Okay. What else do we have here? We've got, again, the grant writing tips. Let me bring that up. Dawn, I don't know if you have another poll. I know we have another question here. You can pick anything. Just take your time, or not, but just letting you know you can if you want to. I'm just going to keep going here, and you should see in my screen some grant writing tips. But your favorite section, here you go. If anyone has a fave. Yeah, you know what? Plan of operations is my favorite too, because it lets me revamp the program, right? And look at it in a different light. Great. Budget too, knock that out. So here you see there's some steps here if you want to check this out. And I think this is good for any type of federal proposal, at least. But the biggest thing is don't worry about formatting now. Pretend there's no formatting issue. Put too much. If you think it should go there, that's fine. If you're worried it's too long, don't worry about that right now. Okay. Don't worry about that right now. And actually, we shouldn't be doing any writing right now. Maybe looking at our applicant and community support section to see where we can make that better and connect with those same folks there or more folks to make sure that that's going to be covered, because that takes some time to do. Right now, it's the budget. Right now, you should be thinking spreadsheet. My budget year one in a spreadsheet, and also the data collection in a spreadsheet. Because once you get some things in black and white, number wise on those two spreadsheets, it's going to answer a lot of the questions you may have about, should I go there? Should I not go there? Those kind of things. Okay, so let me see if I can bring this back. Okay, so let me close that. I pushed the poll. Oh, there it is. Okay, plan of operation by far is the favorite one. Yeah, that's pretty, yeah. I know it's long, but is it your favorite, Teresa?
Yes. Oh, I didn't realize I was off mute.
No, that's okay. You just
that's my favorite section.
Yeah, mine too. So this time my quality of personnel ain't going to be a favorite. And surprise, surprise, nobody is loving the evaluation plan. I know what you mean. Okay. And somebody said, bless their heart, the need for the project. We've got some people liking the need. Hey, I need to connect with you, because that's not my favorite part, but hey, that's the head of the grant. You could write everything else. And if you don't have the need, so sad, it's not going to happen. All right, so let's see if we have another question here. And thank you so much. Thanks, Donna, for those polls. Those are great. And I still have that one question about the off cycle that I cannot answer. And we are sending the link for the Google Drive, so you could see that. Let's see here. Any other questions you all may have? I'm trying to go through here and let you know what's in there. We have some sample letters of commitment. Those may not be as easy to get like they used to be in the past, just from a school principal. Now they're like, oh no, you got to go to the board, and their board meetings happen, whatever, and you need to get on the agenda. So that's what I'm talking about. or we need to do MOUs, got to go through my legal department or the legal department. Oh my gosh, it wasn't that complicated when we were running things at the Boys and Girls Club, right, Teresa? You could go to so-and-so and get a letter, just walking in and everything. Now they're like, oh no, I ain't touching that. You got to go through a couple levels there. We have our grant writing workshops coming up. Don't forget, we have one later this week for EOC on Thursday and Friday. There's still room for that to join us. We go through every single section. Also, a talent search, we will be having our next one on the 24th, 25th. But if you don't want to wait that long, register for it now. You'll have access to the recording of the sessions that we did at the end of February. And you could start working on stuff, start listening to how to collect data for the needs section, how to do your budget. Now on-demand recording, and then join us. You don't have to pay again for our live sessions that occur. So don't think you have to wait. Like even those that have signed up for EOC are thinking about, well, we'll be recording a new fresh one, but the talent search folks don't think, oh, I'll see you in April. I want you to start now. So if you register now, send me an email and we can let you have the links to the on-demand recording since you've already paid for registration. And then you can attend the live one as well. Will anything change? I can't control if anything's going to change by the, by the end of this, by Thursday. Lots of things can happen. But the minute I find something out, we incorporate it into our grant writing workshop. So they're constantly being updated. So I just want to let you know about that. Let me see here. Thank you, Donna. Donna put the registration. When in doubt, you can go to our website, go to the shop page, and you'll see all the information we have for our free webinars like this one here. And also we have videos. We have a YouTube channel. And I think, Donna, this is going to be on the YouTube channel, correct? Right?
Yes.
All our stuff.
Yes,
okay. And so I don't know if you could put a link or have time to do that, or I think they can get it off of our website. Let's say you're on your own and they said, hey, we're here for you. We'll be here every Monday. The recording will be posted, I think sometime tomorrow, and it'll also be on the YouTube channel, so you can go through that. We're going to try to put some resources here that are really pretty much readily available to everybody, but we just have a little bit more time to collect it. So you can always go here to look at stuff. So if you're on your own, you're really not on your own. Let's say you can't spend any extra time or money paying for these services. Well, we're here for you in case you need anything and have any questions. Please email me questions and I'll put them or address them live. And if you're fortunate enough where your institution is able to afford to send you to our grant writing workshops, great. And some of y'all may be our existing clients. So, we'll see you on a more regular basis. But I hope this has been helpful. And we'll try to get you the answers to that other question about off cycle. We got to find someone who is off cycle too. And you might want to send that to me through my email or info@nosotrosedu.org or I'm sorry, email, right? You can also info at, Donna, what's our email for the general questions? I forget.
Yeah, info@nosotrosedu.org.
Okay.
I'll put it in the chat.
Do the letters of support have to be from the principals or can they come from the lead counselors? It's best, you know what, honestly, they should come from the principals or from the superintendent. Okay. I mean, if that's the best you can do, okay, but no, I think and that it would sound better to a reader if they read that these letters are coming from principals or superintendents. Great question though. Okay. And again, you have the ideas, the intent is that these letters were obtained. And when you write your applicant and community support section, I learned this the hard way. Don't say letters will be collected and will be from these entities, and kept and will be filed in the project director's office. No, you're going to say letters of commitment and MOUs have been secured and copies are currently in the project director, or if you don't have a program, in somebody's office or on campus. If you say they will be collected, they will be stored, you could lose a point like I did on some of our grants because they were like, oh, you should have had it. So I learned my lesson there. Isn't that crazy? Didn't cost the grant, but it was one of those. So you want to make sure you write like, no, we got them. Okay. You don't send them in with the grant, but the idea is that you have them with you. All right. So thank you all so much. I hope you got something from this. interaction, and we'll have the recording. And if you have any specific questions, please send me an email. Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Teresa, so much for being there to help at answering questions. I hope you found this useful, and y'all have a great rest of your week.